I mean, personally, I think do the things that can help you fight the sadness in your everyday life. Is that starting a compost, something so small? Is it, bringing your own bags, blah, 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 all this lib shit. Like, do the lib shit that makes you feel good, but do the actual work, which is on a local level, on a regional level, on a statewide and on a national level, making sure we're voting for and we are holding politicians' feet to the fire.
Welcome, Francesca. Do you want to give a quick introduction to yourself and what do you do?
Oh, what's up? I am Francesca Fiorentini. I'm the host of the Bitchuation Room podcast. I used to host Newsbroke on AJ Plus. I'm a stand-up comic. I'm a correspondent. You see me on a couple things and then don't really know where to place me from. So yeah, what's going on?
I actually first started noticing you on AJ Plus, and I wanted to ask you right out of the gates, what was your involvement with them? How did you become involved in that whole little organization?
I helped launch AJ Plus in 2013. AJ Plus is of Al Jazeera, of course, and so they hired me to be a presenter and a producer, and I was, and stayed with them for a while. Help them launch the whole channel, which, of course, the Silicon Valley-ness of it wanted to be an app. They're like, we're going to make a whole new app. And I was like, don't do that. That never works. And it didn't. But no, they went on to do, lots of successful Facebook and YouTube content. And yeah, then I launched Newsbroke in 2016 when Trump started running for president. And the rest is painful history. No. And we ended our last season in January, and hopefully we'll come back, but unclear.
Yeah. I have adored all the work that both you and AJ Plus put out in terms of its content. I do get a lot of pushback when I play stuff from either Al Jazeera or AJ Plus, because people are always like, well, it comes from the government of Qatar. They're a monarchy. They're obviously, they're not very high on the human rights record. How do you kind of juggle the idea of working for basically it's directly funded by the government itself, news organization, but that is still putting out such good progressive content?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. It is weird. I think the difference is that I have never had anyone tell me what I could and couldn't do and say. And so I have, done a lot of viral videos on socialism and, breakdowns of, white supremacy and all kinds of stuff that even a few years ago, especially around anti-capitalist ideas, you didn't really see much of it. People don't really say socialism openly. So if I felt like I was being steered to not say or to say something, I would definitely have bristled more. But look, Al Jazeera is an award-winning international news organization. I repeat this a lot, but it has won Peabody's. It's done incredible documentary work. And it's, look, Qatar is a country that sees Al Jazeera and media as its version of soft power. They don't have tanks and guns and they're actually very isolated in the Middle East right now because the Emiratis and the Saudis hate them because they actually speak critically about those countries. So it's a fairly
geographically
small.
It's really small too. It's a really teeny country. Yeah.
Yeah. Al Jazeera means peninsula. So I'm not going to stand by and say everything the Qataris have ever done is what. No. And in fact, Jazeera covered a lot, especially when it was related to the World Cup and the building of the stadiums there. Jazeera covered that. But I definitely am not there are lines I wouldn't cross. To be honest with you, I do think that Russia Today, RT, is a propaganda outlet. I know people differ on that. I would never work there. They have a line, I think, and they're not allowed to cross it. You can critique U.S. military policy all you want, but the moment you talk about Russians did invade Crimea and annex, then it's no. But look, hey, get your money, y'all. I don't know. I just have certain lines, and so yeah, it's. Luckily, Jazeera puts out a lot of good material and does not clamp down on the shit that I say, although doing comedy for Jazeera it's been fun. It's been funny and interesting. And so there are jokes that people don't get. And so when you were, and it's like, so I think like there's been moments of like that. I can speak to one, but
can you elaborate? Because I didn't even know they had a comedy division.
Well, so I was the comedy division. So Newsbroke
okay.
is the news comedy show that I started off of AJ Plus. And my favorite thing, so okay, I take it back that they've never said anything that we couldn't do. There was one thing that they did not like because, of course, you know, Qatar is a Muslim country. Worked with a lot of Muslims, Middle Easterners, good homies, and depicting any prophet is not okay, right? That is, you know, you cannot depict Muhammad. Well, that also translates to Jesus. So in 2016, we used to do sketches, right? And we put this out, and then they were like, okay, just don't release it on YouTube, but we'll be fine. You already put it out. They didn't like censor us after the fact. They were like, just don't draw attention to it. But we did a sketch where it was trying to elaborate how third parties in this country are fundamentally effed from like jump because of the way our two-party duopoly works and how you're always going to be a spoiler candidate, even though a lot of the lies around Nader did not bear out and are not true. But still, it's incredibly hard, right? And so we did a sketch where Jesus comes back to Earth and starts running for president as a third-party candidate. And he like hang glides in and he's like, I just, you know, want to be the leader. And the right is like, look, I love Jesus and hope to walk with him in the kingdom of heaven one day. But right now he is messing things up for Donald Trump. Like she's like, Jesus needs to not run as a third party. And then the Democrats are like the same thing. You know, Jesus was a socialist. He's great. But, you know, statistically, you cannot win in this system. So it was like, it was so funny. And they were like, oh, but you depicted a prophet because Jesus is a prophet in Islam. So you depicted a prophet. Don't do that. So we couldn't. And this that wasn't like not call. It wasn't like, hello, Francesca. This is the emir of Qatar. No, it was, I wish, dude. I fucking wish I had a line. No. It was more like, okay, slow the roll. Don't put it out because, you know, you're depicting Jesus, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that was one instance that I can remember.
What did you guys end up doing with the clip itself? Like, will it ever see light of day? Is it a Patreon exclusive?
Yeah, it really should be. I think it was out on Facebook. I couldn't remember if it's Facebook or YouTube. It should still be up. It's like a whole explainer of third parties in the United States as part of our Newsbroke show, and then ends with that sketch. So I'll find it. I'll dig it up.
Before I get into geopolitics a little bit, because I know you're obviously very well educated on those topics, I wanted to concentrate a little bit locally. Ask your thoughts first off on the $3.5 trillion bill that Chairman Sanders just pushed through the Senate. Apparently, I'm hearing this is some good news for a change that I can start a show with.
Dude, I've been working on my merch for my podcast all day, so I haven't even tracked this. Do we actually have we done this? Did they not take recess yet and they actually fucking did this?
Well, I don't know if it's a done deal yet. That was one of the first headlines I saw when I woke up. I've got the article up. I was going to pull it together. But this is great. You know what's more important? Let's talk about the merch. What can we expect and when will it be
honestly,
coming out?
If I had $3.5 trillion to do merch, I'm just saying. I've got a couple of t-shirts, including Frantifa, which is my squad. A nice little Frantifa flag with the Antifa flag backwards. So it's an F. It's very cute. Shout out to my designer, Marissa. But yeah, I think that
sounds delightful. I'm so sorry. Really I'll just read you the headline here. Without single GOP vote, Senate approves $3.5 trillion budget blueprint. Senator Bernie Sanders slammed Republicans for complaining about Democrats' use of budget reconciliation, noting the GOP recently used the same process to force through massive tax cuts for the rich.
Yep.
So, it would appear perhaps like the good thing is happening. I don't know. I'm not used to potentially good news coming out of the United States of this magnitude, but
Bernie Sanders lost his fight to be president, but now he's written a budget that could secure his legacy. You know, some of us want to be rappers, some of us want to be comics, some of us want to be, you know, whatever, like a figure skater. Others of us just want to write a budget that will change the fucking world, bro. What if that was your legacy? They will remember the budget. look, we'll see, right? I mean, here's where the rubber hits the road on all this bipartisan BS, which is Manchin and Sinema, you gotta vote for it. Chris Coons, you gotta vote for it. All of these senators, middle of the road senators who are like, Bernie snuck in the $15 minimum wage that I definitely don't want. You know, all these senators, they're gonna have to show the F up and vote for this. And then we're gonna get Kamala Harris as the tie-breaking vote. And look, I am not a girl boss, yes queen, you know, sort of simple feminist, but I will say it will be, and it is very satisfying to watch Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, cast that tie-breaking vote to do something unprecedented and wonderful for the fucking people. I'm excited for that moment. I doubt if we'll get that. I'm still dubious because, again, like with everything, you know, don't get too excited because you're probably going to get disappointed. But also fight cynicism. You know, it's a weird balance. But yeah, man, I mean, 3.5 million is a trillion, right?
Yeah, trillion.
It's huge. And this is, I believe that Biden's initial proposal for the infrastructure budget was 2.3 trillion, got knocked down to basically like one something, and it's like 500 billion of new spending. And then Bernie's like, I want a $6 trillion, budget. And they were like, okay, and let's talk it down. And then it was sort of up to Manchin. I mean, really, sadly, I feel like we're still going to be Manchin whispering and waiting for this motherfucker to be like, yes, you know, or like, wait to see if he's like getting he and his daughter's like pockets are being lined enough so that they can like go with this or not. And it's just like, do we need like a West Virginia carve out where we're like, and everyone gets a puppy in the state and everyone gets a free massage? Like, it's like that. How much do we have to fluff?
Well, I was going to ask, what is the alternative to having to quote fluff Manchin on a regular basis? Like, is there anything else that can be done? Do we have? Is there a plan B without a fluff? Sans fluff.
Sans fluff. Primary him, I guess, is the only thing, which apparently is going to be fairly tough. I think there might be other states that are easier. I don't know. I feel like the senators are like, do you remember when John Wayne died and they were like, oh man, he had like 20 pounds of undigested beef like in his colon. I feel like if you didn't know that, now you do. It was like something roughly around that.
Okay. I heard like Elvis. I heard Elvis died on the toilet and he shit himself. And yes, there was a lot of food that worked his way through. I did not know that about John Wayne. Yeah.
I did. Oh yeah, Elvis did die on the. Did you say turlet? What is that?
That's how Elvis pronounced toilet. I thought near the later half of his life. Yeah.
Turlet. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I do feel like senators in the United States are a little bit like undigested beef, just clogging up our political system, and they just hang on forever. They never leave. You're in California.
No, I'm Canadian, actually. I'm even worse.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude. I'm sorry. I should have known that about the show I was about to guest on.
It's all right. Our audience is mostly Americans, so you're still speaking to Americans. Yeah. It's all,
no wonder you're so nice. I was like, why is Lance nice? God damn it. Look, I'm in a state with Dianne Feinstein. She is old as time. There are sea turtles that are younger than she is.
Or the federal courts, Supreme Courts, like lifetime appointments for people who will be making the laws of the land forever. I don't understand, to be honest with you. It doesn't make sense. I know.
So I just feel like, senators are very hard to replace. And I think they usually, sadly, are they're funneled up, obviously, from Congress, which is good or bad, except for the president. Oh man, you can be an American president and have no political experience. You just come in and blindside the nation and like whatever. Oh my God, you sell supplements on like the Home Shopping Network. Cool, be the president. Like you literally don't need any
everyone probably
experience.
thinks you're talking about Trump, but she's actually talking about Reagan. Just so you know.
Yeah, exactly. You heard me. You felt that. Yeah, no, exactly. It's like. But So I don't know in terms of Manchin. Obviously, it's more than Manchin and Sinema. Like I mentioned, Chris Coons. There's a number of other centrists that I'm forgetting at the moment on the Democratic side. But it's basically a test of like, are they going to stick together? And here's the thing, like, I think progressives are gaining power. I do not believe they have the power that some folks think, which is like, they could do Medicare for all tomorrow. Why won't they? You know, just, and I don't know why that's a wizard voice, but I don't think they have the power, but they do have the clout and they're gaining it because progressives do vote as a bloc and they have supported someone they disagree with, like Nancy Pelosi for speaker. They've supported these bipartisan efforts. They're not withholding their vote because they understand if they do, people will literally die. People are going to, you know, be displaced from their homes. They're going to fall into poverty. That doesn't mean they sacrifice all of their progressive principles and they don't seek to make things better. But it's like progressive Democrats always get so much shit, but they've been on board with the Democratic agenda. Oh, well, Bernie wasn't a Democrat. Yeah, but my man's been on board and fighting for the Democratic agenda for a long time now. You know, and so it's like there's always this like, are they really interested in unity? Well, guess what? They're the most reliable votes on an infrastructure package like this. Mm-hmm. They're the most reliable votes. So you tell me who's more, you know, like, and who's lacking unity, right? But the media, of course, is like, well, Sinema's a maverick and Manchin's a maverick. And how do we just like, you know, get them on board? And you're like, why don't we just call them what they are, which is disloyal? And, you know, the same way you throw that shit around when you're talking about progressives.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. Actually, that's a good segue into my next question, being that, like, there seems to be this rift right now, especially amongst different factions of the left, that we should be attacking the squad for not standing up to their proposed values, right? Were they not going to get in there and push the communism button as soon as they got into power? Never happened. Never pushed the button. I'm still waiting, okay? And at the same time, there are times when, as an outsider, I'm sitting there being like, the eviction moratorium is coming up rapidly. Who's the only person camping out day in and day out? It seems to be Cori Bush, the one that so many people seem to hate at the same time. Now, from my perspective, I think that it would be more effective to have more left-wing and even further left-wing people in positions of power within the Democratic Party, because I just don't see this third party working in the US just yet. And I have seen some good changes come from progressives being in those positions, but I want to know your thoughts on that because I know that's a very contentious issue right now.
I mean, look, one, I think it's understandable that people are frustrated, and but two, I do think that anger at our only allies is very misplaced. Look, I came up in a time when we had nobody. It was like Dennis Kucinich and no one. Like, no one was speaking out against the Iraq war in Afghanistan. Okay, Barbara Lee. Sorry, Representative Barbara Lee. Yes, was one person. Bernie Sanders, 1.5, 2 people. That was it. There was no AOC, Ilhan maybe? Omar. Yeah, Gravel. But it's like no one actually captured the imagination of young people the way that Bernie was able to, and that the way that AOC and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Ayanna Pressley and Jamal Bowman and all of the other squad members have been able to capture young people, and not just young people of color, American immigrants, right? Or American from immigrant backgrounds, African Americans, like just capturing that energy. No one had that energy, and no one was saying the kinds of shit that we're hearing these folks say, even just uttering them. Even just putting daylight, let's say in the most sort of third rail, which is,
machine. Thanks for being
hey,
awesome.
we should rethink our relationship to Israel. The United States should rethink our relationship to Israel. What's happening in the occupied territories? Excuse me.
No worries. Hey, not even rethink our relationship to Israel. The words that were coming out of some of the politicians' mouths, I was like, I never thought I would hear the words apartheid being said out loud.
Yes.
I was like, this is unheard of, unprecedented even, you know? So that is a refreshing thing to see in terms of change.
Yeah. So my view is it is understandable people are upset. I also think that the reality is that politics the political process is fucking bureaucratic. It is boring. You have to memorize and know every single inside and out. Like I remember when there was like a vote for the American Families Plan. It was like, should they or shouldn't they vote to continue the discussion on the minimum wage? They betrayed us. It was all this procedural bullshit. The filibuster is procedural bullshit, right? And all of that is to obfuscate progress. That being said, there are current procedures and there are ways that actually we can actually win. And I do believe that we should be strategic. Growing the ranks of the progressives in Congress is really, really crucial. But also, if you think that if you're like, nah, they're all sellouts, they're all whatever, I don't like that, it's boring, it's too procedural, it's too bureaucratic, that's fine. But then I think joining serious outside pressure groups, and honestly, I don't mean groups that will prop up conspiracy theorists and sexual predators or sort of folks who like to fluff right-wingers. I don't mean those folks, but real serious efforts from the National Nurses Association, from what's going on here in California, what's going on in New York, to actually get Medicare for All passed on a statewide level first, which is truly how we should do this. But I think it's difficult when you get radicalized. I've been there. You get radicalized and you're like, man, I want change tomorrow. Fuck this. Like, you wake up to the fact that capitalism is killing this planet, and it's like, you feel like you're born anew and you want change immediately. And no one is saying we shouldn't demand it, but that it is going to take more than just 4 years. It is going to take, it will be our lifetime struggle. So trying to put that in the long view, I think, is really important, and not complacent and not incrementalist, but the long view, so we can win, so we can really win. And I think this infrastructure bill, if it has things like money for home care workers, if it has things like universal pre-K, those are wins that might feel incremental now. They might feel like Social Security to a radical, back in the 60s or 50s, whenever it was passed, that might have felt like really incremental. But Social Security is actually incredibly transformative, right? And the right knows they can't take away Social Security. They can't take away Medicaid, Medicare. They couldn't even take away Obamacare. As fucking horrible as Obamacare is, they couldn't even take that away. So kind of like putting this in the long view and knowing we're going to grow the ranks and we will, we're going to get stuff done. I want to say one last thing, which is learning the lessons of Bernie Sanders is really important and interesting. Looking at his political trajectory, the guy lost more campaigns than he won. He ran as an independent. He built a name for himself locally. So I think local politics matter. Statewide politics matter. Excelling through the ranks of those rather than sort of immediately going into, Congress, Senate, White House, like that kind of stuff, right? And he ran as an independent and was able to gain clout and respectability for being an independent, for being a progressive in a state that Vermont's not all blue. Like, Vermont, I believe, has a Republican governor right now. Which I always push back on centrists when they're like, oh, how come there's not Medicare for all in fucking Vermont? It's like, one, they don't have a lot of money, and two, they got a fucking Republican governor. So I think that's really important when we talk about third parties, is sort of to see the lesson of Bernie Sanders and how he was able to climb. And don't get me started on his presidential race, because that's another thing we should also look at. But
no, and we've been having too much fun. I don't want us to cry for the next 20 minutes.
No.
Although, you know what's funny? People would probably hate Bernie Sanders right now if he was the president. Because there inevitably there would have been yet another increase to the military budget, because that's not directly something that he could have stopped within 3 months. There probably would have been a couple bombings of Somalia. There probably would have been a strike on Syria or a strike on somewhere near that area. And again, everyone immediately would be like, oh, we our savior, he is Satan incarnate. Look what happened. It's I think
yeah. Oh yeah. But, no, and I do think there is. The last thing I'll say is politics sucks. Electoral politics sucks. It just does. It is confined in this country. It is short-sighted in this country. It's littered with corporate money. So it sucks. It's a bad game. Now we try to play it, and we've played it so successfully in the last 4 years. And the left has been proven. They've been proven they've been proven right. They've been proven right that like progressive politics are popular, and that they are the only way, in my opinion, to stop fascism. They're the only way to stop, as I say, the Trump variant, which is coming.
Mm-hmm. I guess ready. Okay. Put a pin in that one, because I do have some questions about that. I just did quickly want to ask about when it comes to, say, some of the things that the eviction moratorium, for example, the problems with COVID increasing in the United States right now. I think y'all have capped out at about 52% double vax, but the numbers don't seem to be moving much past there. What are your thoughts on the proposed vaccine passports, on the idea of only allowing travel if you're fully vaccinated, of what some people are calling the new form of apartheid in restaurants and nightclubs by only allowing people in there if they've had certain kinds of vaccines? So could you give me your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Look, I think I think it will really make flight attendants' jobs a lot easier if we allow vaccinated passengers on only. They won't have to duct tape crazies to their seats anymore. I think that will really, really help. Seriously, though. And apparently, there was a recent study that was like, what would make you get the vaccine? Would it be not being able to go to a restaurant? No. Would it be not being able to go to a bar? No. Would it be not being able to fly? Yes. Right? Which is a little bit of a reveal of the kinds of people, not all people, but some of the people who absolutely have the privilege to do things like fly around. And who are still resistant for whatever blog posts they read or whatever fucking Instagram post they liked.
And that's not new, by the way. We've been doing this for years. The yellow fever has been a thing. You need a vaccine before you can go to certain countries, or you will get very sick.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think that, and maybe this is because of the way you have to campaign as president, but I do think that Biden missed an opportunity to also instill, especially when he won, a certain amount of gravity. Like, yes, there was the floating of the candles for all the 500,000 people who had died at that point, which actually, to be honest with you, as someone who lost their uncle to COVID, like that didn't mean nothing to me. It was like, oh my God, we live in reality. But the idea of like, we've got this solved. Oh my God, we got that Pfizer and the Moderna, J&J. We're all just going to love one another. We're strong. And we're going to murr. It's like, no, we're still in uncharted territory. This is still unprecedented. We still need to take care of one another. And it is up to each and every one of us. Like that kind of like war mobilization talk was not really there. It was much more like, we're going to solve it. Well, by July 4th, you'll be cooking dogs with your auntie. And it's like, no, auntie doesn't want to get vaccinated. Like, so, it's tough, but it is also, God, my God, what a reveal for how when you obliterate the social fabric of a nation, when you allow corporations to feast on the carcass of what once was a social safety net, you dissolve any idea of what a community is and what a country is, right? And I don't mean a country in the negative. In fact, the only way that America knows how to behave like a unified country is for the most egregious acts like going to war. So maybe we should think about that a little bit more.
What does that tell you? It's also wild how it just kind of showed us how we were stratified by class so much. I had the most liberal of friends asking me like, Lance, why is it that disproportionately Indigenous Canadians, Black Canadians, Hispanic Canadians, and in the same thing in the US, Black Americans, Indigenous Americans, Hispanic Canadians, why are they all dying at such higher rates? And I was like, well, you understand, right? Like a lot of these are frontline workers. We've actually stratified our society based on made up nonsense, which is race, which doesn't exist. And it's very historical and systemic and institutional. And here's a long conversation for you.
No, yeah. And I think that the other thing about that and what's so annoying is that oftentimes the media and even the left will say working class and they code it and they sort of mean in their minds white people. Mm-hmm. white people are not the working class. Like, they make up some of it.
Yeah, they can be in the working class for sure.
They are in the working class, but disproportionately people of color make up the working class, right? And so, like, this is something we have to keep remembering as we devise and develop our leftist politics, to be multiracial, to be anti-racist, and how that is actually very radical and is part of an anti-capitalist and a socialist vision, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, and what have we emerged from this with? Like, I think the infrastructure bill is important for sure. We need to pass the PRO Act in this country, which would protect unions and help unions actually form. We should have raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour. But hey, that's a little too radical for some people in this country. But I
like that it's happening on its own, though. I like that all of a sudden Chipotle is like, well, we just can't hire anyone, so maybe living wage is a good idea for the first time ever. Sure, let's try it out.
Absolutely. And like, and the other reality is, like, you have to, those jobs should be treated like long-term jobs, and they're not, right? They are treated like, oh, this is a stepping stone. Well, not for a lot of people. That is their job day in and day out, and they work there for many, many, many years. That's how they're trying to support their family. Like, oh no, they'll go to college and then, not get a job, and then, start an OnlyFans account, and then it'll be a whole thing. I was like, no, this is their job. And if we have a huge service sector, like, oh, no, we don't make anything anymore. Well, our service sector is gigantic. Then we need to actually start treating those workers as not summer job workers, but as this is the working class, that though these places, these, are sites of struggle and our sites of work. And I think a lot of folks it's dawning on them, man, we've got a lot of work to do. When you think about that, you're like, oh God, we have so much work to do. But it's the one place, if we can give Biden any credit to be like, oh, this guy gets unions. Okay. It doesn't feel just like lip service. And we'll see, right? If he's going to be able to put the squeeze on his centrists to actually pass something like the PRO Act. Yeah. But the guy, when this Bessemer vote was coming down, and Biden didn't know which way the Amazon Bessemer vote was going to go down, right? And obviously there's a lot we could talk about within that. But he still, without openly putting the presidential weight behind those workers, he did. He essentially was like, all workers should have the right to unionize. No corporation should stop them from doing so.
It's illegal to try and prevent it. Like, I think that's he used those terms. It is illegal to try and prevent workers from unionizing, and it is, and it should be something that most people are aware of. I think it's the same thing of when, like, a cop is arresting you. A lot of people don't know their rights. If he's like, "Hey, can I look inside your pockets?" and you're just like, "Well, sure, whatever you say. Help yourself, right?" And it's like, well, you have to ask, "Am I under arrest?" No, then I'd like to go about my way. Then, like, totally. you have to teach people that. You had a really good point in relation to the fact that when you learn about all these systems, how they work, capitalism, etc., you probably just want to, like, change it so you're not a part of the machine anymore. But when it comes to the IPCC report that came out yesterday, global warming is obviously at the front of everyone's mind, and it's just the existential dread that continues our doomerall and our addiction to that substance. I was going to ask, what could be done? Because that's the most often question I am asked, both on my show and just in general and by family. What can be done? Because no one feels like they have any power as an individual compared to these massive, institutions, politicians, what have you.
I mean, I think at this point, personally, I think do the things that can help you fight the sadness in your everyday life. Is that starting a compost, something so small? Is it, bringing your own bags, blah, 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 all this lib shit. Like, do the lib shit that makes you feel good. But do the actual work, which is on a local level, on a regional level, on a statewide and on a national level, making sure we're voting for and we are holding politicians' feet to the fire. I interviewed Naomi Klein for my show recently, and she was like, there's been a lot of focus over the years on corporations, as there should be, right? But corporations are just, they're just like fucking like robots. They're money. Like they don't really respond to pressure that much. Mm-hmm. Money, security, like whatever. And that's them just like throwing all their, droids, or not droids. What are the bad ones? Stormtroopers. And so
they have bad droids too.
There are bad droids. So she was basically
not all
like,
droids, right?
Hashtag not all
Not all
droids.
droids. Yeah. Thank you.
But she definitely was like, the amount of mobilization, the pace that it needs to happen in, the money that needs to be put in there, can only happen through the government. It's the only money, the kind of money that only governments can wield. So whether that's a local, state, federal government, that's what we have to do, is keep on calling our elected officials, which I know feels so whack and feels so meh, but do it. And also like do things that help you fight against the sadness. And that could be, I get so much out of going to street demonstrations. I love that shit. I love making a sign. I love chanting. I love standing by the dude with the boombox. Yeah. Even that, when you're like, you could be at home and be like, street demonstrations don't change anything. It's like, no, they do actually. And they give us a sense of solidarity and like what we're actually fighting for. So I think there's a lot of that. I mean, yeah, it is devastating. It's upsetting right now. And man, I wish the IPCC had some sort of like enforcement body. I asked the head of the IPCC in 2018, 17, when the COP 39 or whatever the hell it was. Now I'm just forgetting numbers. During the Paris Climate Accords, I was like, so if a country doesn't comply with your recommendations, can you just unleash the monster that's under the Fukushima Daiichi power plant? And like,
the kaiju.
Exactly. Can you just unleash that on the countries, to like make them comply?
Oh, that would be so based. Oh man.
And I feel like we need some sort of monster to be like, just like to rip out, fossil fuel pipelines and shit. I would love that. I'd pay to see that. But and in terms of Biden, let's call it what it is. The thing that he's fucking up on is around the fact that he stopped the Keystone XL pipeline and then approved Line 3, which is also a tar sands pipeline. It's like, what are you doing? This is the same shit. It's just got a different name.
I mean, I can only take a little bit of solace in the fact that he really fucked over Canada by doing the first one. So, like, thank you for that one. But in terms of the second, yeah, it is monstrously hypocritical. That's the reason why I keep thinking, what needs to be done in terms of immediate action? Because, like, I've seen those reports that say if we plant 300 billion, which doesn't sound like a lot of money in terms of what we spend money on already, $300 billion worth of trees globally, we'll buy ourselves an extra like 20 to 30 years,
crazy,
before we hit that like 1.5. And then we pull out of Afghanistan and I look at the numbers and it's like, well, the Taliban took back over in the span of 2 weeks. And that was what, like $2.6 trillion that it cost, right?
Yeah.
So like, it seems to be like, maybe is it just like on you, like for you and me, for example, for like opinion pieces, pundits on the internet, is it on us to tell everybody maybe you should resort where you want your priorities to be in your government, or how you want to be reflected, because your dollars are either going to a giant weapons machine or they could be going towards keeping us all alive in the next 200 years.
Do you mean like tax resistance? Or just like what we support?
No, not necessarily tax resistance in terms of our representatives, right? Like, I even Bernie Sanders, I didn't find was someone who was coming out and saying, like he would critique the military industrial complex, but I've never heard strong language like we should nationalize Raytheon, or we should stop the arms sales to countries that are bombing Yemen on a regular basis. We should end all of our military support to Israel, even though we signed that like 2016 10-year pact to increase it, or sorry, to have 3.5 billion dollars per year in military aid. Yeah. No matter what's happening.
No, for sure. I mean, it is about money and it is about priorities. And for example, look, we already have farm subsidies in this country, in the United States. We already have fossil fuel subsidies in this country, right? I can't believe we're fucking subsidizing a death industry. I know you were talking about the military, which has its own carbon footprint. But what if we took the farm subsidies and the fossil fuel subsidies and we're like, look, you can have a farm subsidy, but you have to create a regenerative farm. You cannot plant, monocrop, because monocrop will kill soil. Soil absorbs carbon. We need that shit. So you need to get good soil. You need to have a diversity of crops, and then you'll get the subsidy. And the same, look, in California, there's there's a tax break if you have an electric car. That helped me a lot. Like I use that shit in a heartbeat. And it is about money. It is about incentives. Look at the vaccine. If people got $100 for taking the vaccine, we would have been vaccinated. We're stupid Americans. But I do think that it is about that priorities and about money. So yeah, we have a lot of farmland in this country, and I do think that that farmland could be turned around to actually, combat the climate crisis rather than perpetuate it.
Yeah. In the final minutes that I have you, I do want to ask about that pin that we set and your fear of the 2024 elections. I'm going to just say right out of the gates, I think it might be a bit of a lefty thing to think that the Democrats are about to get completely smoked in the midterms. I'm not as cynical as that. I think they may lose the Senate because the Senate is already so like tenuous, right? It's a tie with the tiebreaker being the vice president. I think they could probably hold on to the House, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. But also, who do you fear is going to be the next big Trump to come along? Because I also feel like the GOP is so strangely fractured now. They become the party of Trump, but they become the party of Trump with someone who is such a toxic candidate, who's embroiled in so many of his own problems, right?
Yes. They're trying to see who is going to emerge from all of this. I mean, and it seems like maybe fucking Ron DeSantis, even though he's overseeing massive amounts of COVID cases and deaths and not allowing children to wear masks in schools, making sure that doesn't happen. And yet that's what the GOP loves. They love death and, just, ooh, bring it. So Ron could be it. In terms of who's the Trump variant, if it's not Trump himself. I hope it is Trump himself because I do think he will lose again, but I am not comfortable saying that. I do think he will lose if Democrats fucking, throw in the towel on this and don't do things like pass this infrastructure budget, reconciliation plan, and don't start touting the shit that they've done. Look at what we've done. Let's talk about it. Did you get a child tax credit? Yes or no? Roll out those ads. You got to roll. I mean, for everything that he was awful at, the one thing he was good at, Trump was selling himself and selling his vision. Biden's got to sell a vision every single day. And if he can't do it because he's, he's a sundowning old man, get Kamala Harris or get some someone to voice a sexy ad or whatever it is, but just sell the vision. The other thing I'll say is that I am an internal optimist and also not super up on every little detail. So other people might see the writing on the wall for Democrats. I don't see it. But I hate the way our media is well, it always flip-flops after a president's won in the next 2 years, the next term. And then there we go. And we just ping pong until the apocalypse. I think that we need to break that narrative and definitely, Democrats need to not sort of buy into that self-fulfilling prophecy that this is the way it's going to go. And leftists need to not buy into the, ooh, I can't wait for this shit to blow up in Democrats' face.
Oh, I hate that.
There's a part of me that is do I really do wish it blows up in their face? But I know we cannot afford that. And we meaning not. The most vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, it's I've seen people online who always tweet, this is obviously kind of the LARPy online left, that is when is the U.S. empire going to crumble? When will it fall? And I was okay, do you know pragmatically what that means? That means millions of people will die, millions of people will starve, and on top of that, the global economy will utterly collapse, leading to right-wing governments propping up all over the place, wars, drought. It's not as simple as just being end blank. And everything is it's the same problem with them wanting, AOC to push the communism button, which I still wish she would. It's there every day.
It's right there. Just push it. Every day she wakes up and has the communism button. Well, the other thing I will say is about that is being useful, right? Is it what do you think that what Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing right now? She's been stripped of all of her roles on any committees. So she probably, if she were to propose a piece of legislation, which I know she has, it's probably put Nancy Pelosi in a circus tent and throw, I don't know, whatever the fuck it is. Who's going to back that? She could get 10 congresspeople to back whatever plan she's got, that's not going to pass muster. So that's what's interesting is like who and how are you building alliances? And you are going to have to build alliances with people who we don't 100% agree with. That is coalition building. That is how things are done in the political sphere, in the movement sphere as well. If you believe in social movements, a social movement, I don't believe in a small cadre of perfect socialists, no such thing, who then, put out the bat signal, throw down the line. The country has been over this in the 60s and 70s. They were like, all you need to do is have a, Marxist-Leninist cadre, and then everyone else will follow suit. No, it didn't happen like that, and it will not happen like that. I believe in a very much a democratic, a coalition of different political stripes, different stripes on the left, everything from anarchists to Democratic Party. Let us build that kind of coalition that isn't stupid about electoral politics, meaning they don't put all their eggs in that basket, but they don't put no eggs in that basket. That understands that arc of change. And so someone like AOC is trying to, as much as she can, because man, she gets shit on by Democrats like Representative Hakeem Jeffries, and other centrist Democrats all the time. Yeah. Right. But she's trying to stay around and not be irrelevant to the political process like someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I had a couple questions from the audience. Do you have time for one or two?
Hell yeah.
Okay, sweet. One of them is to Francesca. How can the left form a robust international politics? Can we approach the notion of the act of interventionism? And does withdrawal not entail anti-imperialism at all?
Does withdrawal?
Sorry. I think it was typed a little bit in haste, so I'm trying to read it out as best as I can. But how about this? How can the left form a robust international politics? And how do we approach the notion and act of intervention? And that's U.S. intervention, I'd assume.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me on this is to not be knee-jerk about our politics when it comes to foreign policy. And what I mean by that is obviously neither buying into a militaristic right wing, we must stamp out terrorism and the United States is the benevolent, do-gooder throughout the world's cop. That's bullshit, we know. But at the same time, understanding that part of the United States' slow descent from its being a hegemon is that there are other powers in the world. Some of them are okay. Some of them are pretty unsavory. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, Assad is unsavory, right? I am not of the ilk that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So I do think there are people we have to look out for, in terms of heralding them just because they hate the United States. That doesn't mean I believe in intervention, toppling those people at all. It just means my solidarity is not contingent upon if you hate U.S. intervention. My solidarity is contingent upon the people. What are the people on the ground asking for? And I think the Syrian people have been very divided, but have been asking for, honestly, some of them back in the day were asking for humanitarian intervention. And me as a lefty was like, no. And we don't have to talk about Syria because it's this whole can of worms, but like, Afghanistan, right? What are the people saying? Not Taliban leadership, fighters, whatever, but also what are people saying? And there are, for example, in Iraq, the Iraqi oil workers had a union that was also doing work with some anti-war organizations in this country, one that I was a part of called the War Resisters League. And it was not a Sunni, Shia, no one was affiliated with any kind of militant movement, because it is hard, especially in the Middle East, to be like, how do we know who these, folks are? Like in the Vietnam era, and my mentor, Max Elbaum, who's written a wonderful book called Revolution in the Air, where he charts all the 60s and 70s radical movements in the United States. Amazing guy. He always talks about how in Vietnam, it was much easier because the Viet Cong were actually fighting this war of liberation and, were communists, right? And they were much more in line with some of the left in the United States, whereas in the Middle East, in a lot of ways, especially with the ways that it has been radicalized, thanks to U.S. intervention, we're not going to ally ourselves with ISIS. We're not going to ally ourselves with like these al-Nusra Front or shit, but there are workers. There are women's organizations. And I don't mean that from an imperial, like, let's go save the women. I mean that from a like broad international feminist way. And I know we haven't seen a lot of those things, but it doesn't mean we can't try. And let's remember that what the 60s and 70s did have that was beautiful was an idea of internationalism that we have long forgotten. Ironic, because we live in a completely globalized world. Sadly, for better or worse, it's completely globalized. But if we can remember internationalism and international politics, I do think we can build towards something that is from the ground up, that we don't interpret other countries through the lens of our own militarized, our dictators, our strongmen. Fuck that, right? Yeah. U.S.-China relations. We need strong grassroots. And there are organizations that are doing good work, and they're not all imperialist. They're good. They're not all USAID related, that are building bridges between people of China and the people of the United States, so we can stop using the narratives that our governments are wielding against us about the other in order to further control their own populations. I hope we get there. I think that climate change is one of those perfect moments and reasons for us to unite, given that clouds really don't respect borders, which is fucked up of them.
So you're launching the climate war.
Yeah, I'm launching the climate war. What I'm saying is, let's launch the climate war. But yeah, there's a vision out there. We just kind of have to like make it come true. And definitely the internet can be a terrible place to do that, or it could be a good place. I think a lot of folks, you're from Canada. I think a lot of people that I'm on the Damage Report regularly. My show has got a lot of international viewers. I love that stuff. I lived in Latin America for many years. My God, the lessons that Latin America holds for the United States.
They're having a lot of great leftist victories too right now in Central and South America.
Oh my God. They've got this socialist Peruvian president who, once again, like, I know he's got some bad things. He's more conservative on like abortion rights and gay marriage.
So where have you, cause I've been saying the same narrative for a while. I've been like, I do not endorse the fact that he's apparently homophobic, that he apparently is not for women's reproductive rights and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. But he is not a fascist. His opponent is a literal fascist, and she's the legacy of a dictator. So I would prefer that he's in power. But I haven't found a lot of direct sources that attribute, like, is that, I don't want to throw Alex Jones conspiracy theories out here. I just haven't seen that coming directly from like Telesur, for example.
Yeah. Oh, you mean about his conservative ideology?
About him being like homophobic, for example.
I don't think there's enough good reporting, and I definitely don't think there's enough good English language reporting on this. And I think he did. His victory was unexpected, and it is great. Like, I think anything that breaks sort of that stranglehold, obviously the Fujimori stranglehold of Peru, is great. So I feel like it's like we don't have to come down one way or another. And even if like, it's also not up to us. Like, I think the other thing is like that on the left, we're like, we can participate in our own, especially from like the United States, like in our own sort of hegemonic understanding of the world, even from the left, by being like, well, I get to decide what is a good movement and what is a bad movement, because and it's just like, that's still kind of imperialist, like, you don't have to have, not all things have to go through you, buddy, and your own perspective on, whether this is a good or bad thing for Peru. In my mind, seeing the way he has come from the grassroots, he is very open about trying to tax the mining corporations, which, spoiler alert, he's going to fail on doing to the extent that he wanted to, because Peru is not a rich country and they do rely a lot on mining. So he can't totally bite the hand that feeds him, which is sort of this, it's the double-edged sword of being a socialist in a, second world global South country.
Wecanadian mining too, I should add.
Huge Canadian mine. Sorry.
Oh, we love mining the world. It's our thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we'll see. Like, I would love to actually go there. I would love to, I await. I am not an expert, but I think there are other people I could direct you to who could talk to your audience more about him.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, I got a bunch of suggestions from a good friend of mine, but so I'll pass those along to you. Because yes, we should totally, consult the folks who know, get some good nuance around this. But is it a break of an oligarchic stranglehold on that country? Yeah. Am I for that? Yeah.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Okay, I have two super quick questions. Can I throw them at you? Okay, one of them is, what do you think? Will Biden run again? 4 years, or is he going to do what he said before? Come on, man. Hey, Jack, and just pass it on over to Kamala Harris.
I think he's going to run again. I absolutely think he's going to run again. Even though he said he was a transitional president. And I don't know. I don't know how to think about that. I am at once afraid and excited for someone like Vice President Kamala Harris. I mean, I'm excited mostly in a shallow way, which is, it's not nothing, but I do think it is limited because she's a woman of color, etc. That being said, she is very much not a progressive. I don't think she really has, it's funny. It is interesting that our first vice president, who is a woman, is very much like Selena Myers from Veep. Like, just kind of like, I like power. What? Can I have more power? I'm pretty and like I deserve power, right? And then when she gets there, she's like, I don't know what I stand for. It's like,
tell me what to stand for, please.
Totally, tell me what to stand for. No disrespect, but and most politicians, Vice President Kamala Harris is not unique in not having politics. Most politicians don't have a lot of politics. But so I'm not excited for her, especially because she puts us once again in that space where she will be torn down because of her gender and her race, because that's the fucked up country we live in right now. Yeah. They will hammer her just because of that. And she's also not sort of doesn't have the progressive principles that I would want. So it's that, I'm in the same boat here in California. We've got Governor Gavin Newsom, who's been effing up in so many different ways, but he believes that climate change is real. Now he's facing a recall, and he might be replaced by a YouTube influencer who is called the landlord influencer. That's if we're lucky. If we're unlucky, he's replaced by right-wing talk show host Larry Elder, who has said, who's running for governor and has said things like women are not as smart as men, like whatever. He said some really fucked up stuff. Like, I can't even remember all the things. But these I have to defend Newsom. Do I enjoy that as a leftist? No. Do I think it's strategic? Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So, this is that world we live in. So anyway, I don't know. I do feel like Biden will not, he's going to run again. He's going to run again. And hopefully we can get more done under him. And hopefully he'll know how to tout that. And then AOC can primary Kamala Harris.
Which would be glorious.
And probably would be unsuccessful, but you never know.
All right. My final question is, I'm sorry to have to do this. It's a bit of a bombshell. I was doing some research into you. I was looking at your website, and I found a review that is very prominent at the top of the website, and I'd like to read it out now verbatim.
Yeah.
A sublime force of energy, a powder keg of wit and personality the world has been waiting for. Francesca's mom.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an unbiased source, to be totally honest, and you're leading with that.
Look, a review is a review, okay? And so long as New York Magazine's not calling me for the interviews, like, she is a source. Like, just because she birthed me through her body doesn't mean she doesn't like me. You know what I'm saying? Like, she loves me, but she doesn't like me. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's fairly neutral.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad. That was a huge worry that I was going to have to clear up, Francesca Gate, but we've done it. All right, everybody. It's now, the scandal is over. We broke and closed the scandal in under 1 minute. So you're welcome. I helped out. Francesca, where can everyone find you? Why don't you drop all your
socials? My God, dude.
Give your plugs.
Find me on all the things at Franny Fio, FRANIFIO, on YouTube and on Twitch. I stream every Sunday, 5/8 Eastern. I know that's not enough for some Twitch users, but the Bitchuation Room streams every Sunday, 5/8 Eastern, on YouTube and on Twitch, and on Instagram and Twitter at FrannyFio as well.
Thank you so much. This was an absolute pleasure. You're really funny. Oh
my God. I thank you for letting me talk. God, I just love the sound of my own voice, Lance. No, thank you guys. Thank you for what you do and for bringing me on and for, talking to people every day and keeping us company.
Cool. Thanks. Let's talk soon.
All right. Take care.
Bye. Oh, that was awesome. Do you want movies and Serfs watching the movies? So then come over to the new channels. It's the Serfs Cinema. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Can you do the thing, that thumbs up and comment and all those things that help us out in the algorithm that controls every aspect of our lives? Also, if you happen to have a Facebook account, can you delete it? Like just delete it. You should probably delete your Facebook account because it's not a great company. But hey, if you can't do that for whatever reason, I understand. And could you also go to facebook.com/thesurftimes then and give us a little like and a follow. We're just trying to push back against the fact that people like Ben Shapiro happen to dominate the platform entirely. And when everyone asks why do older generations believe the things they believe, one of the problems is the majority of them on social media use Facebook. So to counter that, we're just going to be on there too now. Also, if you happen to have a union or a worker co-op or even a leftist project, podcast, website, Zoom, MySpace, it doesn't matter. We will advertise it for free on this channel. All you got to do is go to weareserfs.com and use the forms that we got there, weareserfs.com. Thanks, everybody.
To our gods, Tigro and Payton El Jus, we pray to you, our sky daddies, to keep us safe from harm. To our monarchs, Tom Spiker and the Tim Caucus, we shall humbly clean your golden toilets in your spatial palaces. To our lords, Ultra Wolf, Evan Nudie, Trevor R., Alexander Thaler, Ryan Lubin, and Jeff Lamb, we are eternally grateful for this small segment of land for us to toil and work. To our knights, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Ants Are Still Running the World, Coulter Smith, Val 9000, Jenna Tall, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Saren 42, Chronic to Hemphog, Catherine, Bone Jenny, Radical Maniac, Ramona Costa, Jimmy Bignuts, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Jopi, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our glasses, we raise our swords, and we salute you, our friends. And to Lance, you are the wind beneath my wings.